And welcome in. Good Breeders' Cup Eve, everyone. Jeremy Plonk and Jeff Siegel from First Bet and Express Bet. We do the First Call podcast every Friday to handicap 8 stakes races around the country. This week, we're moved up a little early because of a ditty called the Breeders' Cup, and we're going to do a lot more than 8 races, Jeff. There are 14 stakes races for the Breeders' Cup. We're not going to talk about all of them in a traditional handicapping seminar kind of sense. We've got this broken down into 10 topics tonight to help players tackle this Breeders' Cup challenge. It's one that's gone now for 40 years. This is the 20th year of the Express Bet and First Bet Breeders' Cup wager guide. So we've been digging in for a couple decades here at First Bet and Express Bet. And I know you've seen every one of these Breeders' Cups going back to the first at Hollywood Park.
Well, I can guarantee you I saw the first at Hollywood Park. Here it is.
There we go.
Let's see if I can. There it is. 1984, November 10th. And it says $10 million. Well, that was a cheap outfit back in 84. $10 million in Breeders' Cup versus. I was there. I actually was spotting for NBC. Saved the form. I figured 40 years later, if I was still around, I could show it off. And
yeah,
that's what I just did. But it's actually one of the better Breeders' Cups because I have more confidence this year than I've had in some years because in watching the races at Santa Anita, I think we are going to be bias-free. And we don't have to worry about inside lanes, pro speed, pro closers, outside draw. Track's fast. I've seen horses win on the lead from off the pace. Grass course is very glib, but that doesn't mean it favors one or the other. We saw it today at Santa Anita on grass. Gate the wire winner of the first race, and some horse came from 15 lengths back in a sprint to could beat a nose. It can be done. So we've got some opinions, and it's not just who we think will win. It's how to bet, which horses to include, which horses not to include that might be favored or have short prices. So it's kind of all-encompassing. Eventually, everybody's going to have to make their own decision, but hopefully we can add some fuel to the fire and maybe contribute in some way or another to producing a winning ticket for somebody.
If you want the full card picks and that's your deal, be sure to check out the blog section at expressbet.com and on news.first.com. Jeff has his daily What You Need to Know for Santa Anita, where he goes through every race on the card. That'll be posted tomorrow morning for Friday, Saturday for Saturday's big races. So be sure to check out his race-by-race analysis for sure on the blog section. And, of course, inside the wager guide at first.com/guide, we've got analysis of all 14 races, picks from experts across the First family of racetracks and all of our properties, the XBTV crew that's been there in the morning for weeks now, watching and shooting the workouts and evaluating those. The whole team's tuned in. Eddie Olczyk's got his classic all geared up for us as well. So the whole crew's in town. Everybody's ready to go. You can check it all out in the wager guide, first.com/guide. But trust me, we will not be short of opinions tonight or short on picks. If you are watching right now on our live stream at YouTube, be sure to take part in the comments. Those of you on Twitter, at us at Horseplayer Now or at J Siegel Racing. As we go through the show today, we'll try to check up on social media as we go along as well. Any questions you might have for handicapping the Breeders' Cup, we'd love to try to catch those. We may not get to all of them, but we hope to get to some of them. And those that we don't catch in the live show, we'll try to react to in the comment section afterwards or on social media in the next 24 hours or so. But Jeff, it's high time for the Breeders' Cup. We've got 10 topics to handicap with tonight's podcast in terms of the format. And let's just get right to it here. The first topic we're going to talk about is the most probable winner on the Breeders' Cup card. Which one do we think won't lose out of the 14 races? Who could we hang our hat on? Jeff Siegel, we're going to start off on Friday with you, and I've got one for Saturday.
Yeah, well, any horse can lose, including Tamara, but she is 4 to 5 in the morning line. And both of her races were outstanding at Del Mar. And I want to bring the point up because I've watched her work since her last race, the Del Mar debutante, and she's worked well. She hasn't worked like a 4 to 5 shot, but she's worked well. Yep. But then here's the key to this, though. She didn't work all that great before her debut. In fact, she wasn't even favored with all the hullabaloo and the about the beholder and this and that.
Right.
She was not the favorite, and that was primarily due to the fact that she trained okay, but nothing like beholder. But then she goes out there and she just blows my mind by winning that maiden race first time out with a absolutely terrible trip along the rail, checked repeatedly, down on the inside, worst part of the track, took all that dirt away, and finally altered course out and just exploded, which was one of the reasons why she was such a short price in the Del Mar Debutante, won that
Yeah.
race easily. So I'm going to assume she's just not that great of a workhorse because she wasn't before her first start, and look what she did. It's hard for me to believe that she won't get better over distance to ground, even though she's stretching out for the first time. She's on the outside here of this work, and still it's a good work, 3/4 and 12 and 3. I mean, she's niggled at in the final stages. She's not completely into the bridle, but this is what Tamara is going to give you in the morning. She gives you a lot more in the afternoon, and even this work is pretty good. I'm not going to, she's ridden out to the end, but I mean, she's a 2-year-old filly. She's going to continue out and gallop out 7/8 and 25 and change, which I hate to be critical of. I mean, most 2-year-olds would love to be able to do that. You know what I'm saying? So I think she'll win. Her mother went long. She'll run longer, I think. And she's got a good post. She's got good stalking, tactical speed. That's why she's 4-5.
Tamara, Jeff's most probable winner on Friday in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. Hard to argue with that based on John White's morning line again at 4-5. I've got one on Saturday. I don't think the Saturday card just has a lead pipe cinch throughout it.
No,
we'll talk about some vulnerable favorites a little bit later. So therefore, my horse is not even favored, and I don't think she would go favored as the most likely winner on the card. But you know me, I love a pace advantage, right? Give me lone speed, and I'm usually sold. Give me a race that I scouted and I really liked, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. And I end up with Mauge. I think she's coming out of a really good race. She's in the Breeders' Cup Mile. I love 3-year-old fillies in the Breeders' Cup Mile historically. And this Godolphin color bearer just went wire to wire on the front end at Keeneland last time out. I see no other speed, Jeff Siegel, in the Breeders' Cup Mile. There just is a pace advantage there. And when you give a great horse a pace advantage, they rarely give back that kind of advantage. So I'm on Mauge as the most likely winner in the Breeders' Cup. I'll even say more likely than Tamara. And Tamara is 4-5, but Tamara hasn't gone 2 turns. What we know about Mauge is she's coming out of that mile and 8. She cuts back. She's a Guineas winner in England. I think she's an outstanding miler. She's my top play and most probable winner on the Breeders' Cup card. So when we talk about these most probable winners, these are horses that you want to get in and around when you're talking about your wagers, right? I mean, you want to get to them and through them as you're making your plays throughout the day.
Well, she's stalking a stablemate here. She doesn't ever go by. She's not a dirt horse in any way, shape, or form. And she's not being asked. This is not a race, by the way. It may look like it, but it's not. So, I mean, this is all they really wanted her to do. And I mean, she did it fine. I mean, she's dead fit. I wouldn't worry about her in the least. And I totally agree with you because she won going a mile and an eighth off a layoff. She hadn't run since her win in the Guineas, which was brilliant. And she doesn't want to go a mile and an eighth. Yeah. But she found extra, don't you think, Jeremy? I mean, she did something she wasn't really fit enough to do, didn't want to do, and over a course that had a little bit of gift to it. Whereas this pool top table of a grass course, she's going to make the lead and just float. Yeah. You know, it's going to be like an ice skater. So I totally believe that she is the right horse and a good gamble. The only reason why I didn't think she was the most probable winner is because there are others in that field who can run. I mean, it's not like
that's true.
2-year-olds. I mean, she's got a couple of fillies that might be pretty good, Tamara, but the rest of them look far inferior. But that mile race is tough. There's some nice horses in there, which tells me that Mauge better not take a backward move. That's all I'm saying.
You talk about the mile, that's the dirt mile field. So my first error in live clicking here tonight. Here's the mile field that we were talking about. Mauge the 6, 4-1 in the morning line. Song line from Japan, the 5-2 morning line favorite. Kalina, another 3-year-old filly. That one from France, running in France. She's got outstanding form as well. So that's a look at the Breeders' Cup mile. I'm going to stick my neck out and give Mauge as my key play and most likely winner on the card. So let's go to our second topic tonight. We've got our most likely winner. So next up, Jeff, let's talk about our sink or swim exotic single. Now, you could say your most likely winner would be the horse you would single in the exotics, but what we're talking about here is who needs to win in order for you to just hang your hat on a big exotic, a pick 4, a pick 5? For me on Friday, I'm going to go first on this one because my race is on Friday. Yours is on Saturday. At the end of the day, I'm going to say Muth is the horse I've got to sink or swim with in the exotics. Couple reasons for that, and I'm going to give you, some thoughts on Muth here. This is a horse who is in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and he's already done what a lot of these horses haven't done in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, which is win at Santa Anita and win around 2 turns. Those are the positives. It's Bob Baffert in the Juvenile. But what I'm sinking or swimming in terms of a multi-race wager with Muth is it's a dirt race. I don't have Euros to worry about. There are 5 races on Friday, right? 3 of them are loaded with Europeans and loaded with, X factors. Horses have never gone around the bend, much less 2 turns. So I don't know what to make of the turf sprint. I don't know what to make of the juvenile turf or the juvenile fillies turf. If I'm going to have any success playing a pick 4 or pick 5, I've got to be right on one of the 2 dirt races. If it's not Tamara at 4 to 5, and I don't want to hang my shingle on a 4 to 5 shot, then it's the other race. So for me, if I'm going to have any success in an exotic wager on Breeders' Cup Friday, it's with Muth. And I really like him from a handicapping standpoint. I thought he was really professional in his last victory, splitting horses about the 5/16th pole right before they got the quarter. He could have been in a pickle in a bad spot, and a lot of times a 2-year-old would be, especially stretching out for the first time. But he had a gear like a turf miler at that point, and he zipped in and out of a hole, then went on and drove off to the victory over his stablemate for Baffert. I like Muth in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. The other reason to hang your hat on this one is a sink or swim in the multi-race wagers. If you're not singling there, where are you going? There's 3, 4, 5 deep in that Breeders' Cup Juvenile. All of a sudden, your ticket now goes from 1x to 5x in cost.
Yeah, no, I mean, it would be lovely for me if I could have the conviction that you have with Muth. And I like Muth. I'm not talking you off the horse. But I have a really strong opinion that there are 4 or 5 of them in there. This is a much stronger than normal. I remember, what was that horse, Storm the Court, who won it? I mean, the most miserable, race I ever saw. Action This Day back in 2000, whatever, 3, I think it was. You knew there's nothing in that race, those races could run. But this is different. You've got some well-bred, promising colts with fast figures. I mean, horses that have run fast. Muth is one of them for sure. Now, the bad news for Muth is that I don't think he could have gotten a better trip than he got last time out in the American Pharoah. But the good news is he made that trip. I mean, he got to where he needed to be. I like that. People criticize horses that get perfect trips. There's a reason why they get them, because they go get them. So I like Muth, but Baffert's got 3 in there, and you've got a really good Kentucky Invader that's very, very good. The one that won the Locked, and then a couple others in there that are really good. I'm looking at the field here. These are the horses that I know can run. Prince of Monaco is undefeated. He's beaten Muth. You've got Timberlake, who looked great in the Champagne, but it was an off track. Locke took the Overland route and won very bravely, I thought, in Kentucky. Fierceness was a breathtaking winner in his debut and then got left in his last start. Muth maybe drawn a little farther out than I'd prefer, but maybe not. I mean, those are all good colts, and they're all at different stages of development. It wouldn't take a shock for me to see a horse produce a significant forward move at this time of the year. So I can't make him a single, but boy, I tell you, if you can, and you're right, man, you got a head start on everybody.
Well, you said sink or swim. That's what we got to do here in this situation, and we're going to try to swim like Michael Phelps in this.
All right. Well, then if you can do that, you'll win. Okay.
Let's get your sink or swim play that you have to have for the exotics.
Well, it's
on Saturday.
It is, and that's Ushba Tesoro. And here's my thinking: I'm not really that crazy about the 2 main contenders that are in this race. I just don't think that Baffert's horse, Arabian Night, is going to run as well as he ran in the Pacific Classic, and he got the easiest of front-running trips. He's trained great, I know that, and maybe he'll step forward. But he's going to have to deal with Saudi Crown, who I think is going to want the lead more than him. In fact, I think that's the plan there. And Arabian Night's never stalked and won, so I don't know about Saudi Crown and Arabian Night going 1.25 miles. Obviously, I know a lot about going 1.25 miles when you talk about Ushba Tesoro. I think he's won 6 races already at that distance. And nobody else strikes me as being capable of winning a race like the Dubai World Cup, which Ushba Tesoro did. He's won what, 6 in a row, something like that.
Right.
I have not seen him in the morning, but I've talked to people who have. Talked to Zoe this morning, and she said the horse looks unbelievably great. He does have an issue with the gait, but he's run 30 times, so I'm figuring he'll figure it out when he gets there. But that's the only negative on Ushba Tesoro when he's been schooling at the gate. He's been acting up. But other than that, he looks fantastic. He will go 1.25 miles. I believe he will have enough pace to chase. He's run around the world already once and won big races. I don't think that's going to bother him. Looked great in the prep race he had recently in Japan. And I just think he's a top horse. And at 4-1, and in a race in which I don't really like anybody else, I certainly don't like Wide Barrio going 1.25 miles, especially missing time. I'm going to be right or wrong with him. And if I'm wrong with him, I'll live with it. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Well, that's the whole sink or swim part of this, right? I mean, it's one of those that a horse that you absolutely have to have in a multi-race wager isn't necessarily your most likely winner on the card, because it's I've got to have this horse or else it really opens up a lot of times. It makes your tickets unaffordable. I've got a little video. You haven't been able to see Ushba Tesoro in the morning, but that's because he's been in the dark when he's out on the racetrack. Here's a look at Ushba Tesoro from some morning training.
Top of the lane, yellows.
Here, top of the turn here. Seconds of watching him in action. Again, this from the Breeders' Cup news feed. The Japanese runner has been out early for his gallops and which is a pretty stiff gallop here for sure. And his gait schooling sessions have been what has been a little bit of a concern, Jeff Siegel. The gait schooling where he hasn't been behaved in the starting gate. The good thing about it is it's 1.25 miles. The bad thing about the gate position here, and not to knock Ushba Tesoro, because like you say, he's a key to the wagers and one that you're going to stick in on, is when they load in the starting gate. We remember this from when Quality Road flipped out in the starting gate before the Breeders' Cup Classic. That 1.25 miles, the gate's pretty close to kind of like the back wall there at Santa Anita. There's not a ton of room, and we will see. I mean, he's going to have to be on his behavior, but I think you'll know you're going to get the best race out of Ushba Tesoro the moment the gate pops open, right? I mean, if he's standing nicely and he breaks, then may the best horse win.
Well, he's a deep closer, but he doesn't have to be. He can lay fairly close if they need him to be. But boy, can he turn it on. He had so much to do in the Dubai World Cup. I thought he had no chance, and he just rolled on by everybody. Now, that was a longer stretch than he'll have here. But I don't think that's going to be a problem. And again, I'll say it one more time. If he doesn't win, honestly, I don't have a second and third horse in that race.
Right.
So I might he has to win, or I could put 5 in there and be wrong. So why spend the money? No.
Now, if you're a couple minutes into this podcast and you're like, okay, these guys have given us their most probable winner and the horse they have to sink or swim with in a multi-race wager, and they still sound like they're a little wishy-washy, right? It doesn't have to be this or it doesn't have to be that. That tells you how hard the Breeders' Cup is. If you watch Jeff and I on any of our podcasts, we do a Tuesday show. It's official. We do a Friday show, First Call. You're going to find out we're blatantly honest and brutally honest, right? I mean, if we like something, we will let you know. If we don't like something, we're going to let you know. And it gets us in trouble sometimes. But I can tell you this, that the Breeders' Cup isn't about finding stone cold lead pipe cinches. You're just not going to. It's the freaking Breeders' Cup, man. This is hard handicapping. So when we get to some of these other topics, which are horses that we're a little more creative about, this is where the juices get flowing and you get excited, because Breeders' Cup's not about, I picked 6 on top in 14 races, and they were short prices or something like that. It's about catching 1 or 2 exotics over the course of 2 days that make your entire fall, if not your year. So that's the beauty of the Breeders' Cup. Have a great Breeders' Cup by hitting 2 or 3 big plays, and you'll remember it for a lifetime. I mean, I still remember the Woodbine Breeders' Cup, 1996, like it was yesterday. I furnished my entire apartment back in a day where hitting a trifecta or a superfecta meant, new TVs, new sofas, new everything. I mean, like, have a great day at the Breeders' Cup. You have that by simply hitting 1, 2, 3 really nice ones. And that makes for a lifetime of memories. So we're going to get into some more topics, I think, that are going to be a little more exciting in terms of, okay, now I can see why these guys have their juices flowing. Right now, we started off with kind of the easy ones. Who are the tap-in putts? Who do we think are okay? So let's move on now to our next topic. It's going to be topic 3 here on the show on this Thursday night, the most vulnerable favorite. Now, you start to beat some of these favorites and you get excited about the possibility possibilities of larger payoffs. I'm going to take first up because this is just the way the races go sequentially. Cody's Wish in the Dirt Mile is the morning line favorite. He's the defending champion. I think he's vulnerable in the Dirt Mile. A couple reasons for it. Let's take a look at the field for the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. Of course, the 2 is out, already scratched. It was announced Algiers is also out. So we're down to a field of 7. Smaller field size usually puts more emphasis on early speed. A 2-turn mile race like this with a short run to the first turn, even with a decent run-up, again, emphasizes speed. Cody's Wish comes from off the pace. And Jeff, you and I have talked about this a bunch in our podcast over the last year. Cody's Wish around 2 turns isn't as good as Cody's Wish around 1 turn. So I think this pace situation here is not very fast. I don't think he's as good around 2 turns. And I'm not so sure that he's as good now as he was coming into the race last year. So I think Cody's Wish at 9-5, maybe goes less than that with the 2 scratches now. Cody's Wish is going to be a shorter price than that now. I think he's vulnerable, and I think he's going to be beaten as the favorite in the Dirt Mile.
Well, I didn't like him a month ago. I didn't like him 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, 1 week ago. But boy, he sure looked good galloping this morning. Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe he'll find a way, and I kind of hope that he does because I'm a fan of his, obviously. But from a pure gambling standpoint, Bob Baffert should have listened to us about a month ago when we suggested.
Go ahead, Jeff.
That was Cody. That was that?
Yeah, that was Cody. Yep.
Right. That's what I thought. Yeah, no, he looks great. But there isn't much pace in this race. Whoever makes the lead, whoever it is going to have a pretty soft time of it. Mm-hmm. And it's going to hurt Cody, especially if the track is playing for its speed, which by the time this race rolls along, we'll have a pretty good idea. Mm-hmm. But, Zozos could go. Certainly National Treasure, if they want it bad enough, they could send him. Funny thing about this race is I really thought that Algiers had a chance at 6-1. He came up with a hot foot, so he's out. I don't have a great conviction in this race. I even think Skippy Longstocking's got a chance. This is going to be a spread race for me. I don't have a feel for it. I think Zozos is going to be put on the lead. I think Brad Cox has said that. That's their game plan.
Yeah.
And maybe National Treasure will draft in behind them. And if they don't hook up, this might be a 23-3 and 46-4, 47.5. And that's going to play against Cody's Wish, unless Cody is a much better 2-turn horse than I've ever seen him. Even though he won this race last year, that was not a good race last year. That was a weak race. So,
yeah. And a very fast pace, right? They're not the pace of last year's Dirt Mile doesn't look like the pace of this year's Dirt Mile. So I think it's going to set up completely different for him. Now, you're saying it's a 7-horse field. You can't get too excited even if you beat the favorite in here. But remember, the fact that it is a 7-horse field with a very solid and name recognizable favorite, Cody's Wish is going to be singled in a ton of multi-race bets that get in and out of the Dirt Mile. Beating him with anybody in that race is going to pay off in spades in the multi-race wagers. So how do we attack this vulnerable favorite? Even if you like Zozos or somebody else who you don't think is going to be a big price on the tote board, you might say, well, great, I beat Cody's Wish and I got $7. I got 5-2 on the second choice. Don't look at it that way. Try to use that $7 horse in a pick 3, a pick 4, however you can use that horse in multi-race wagers, because everybody's going to be ironed in on Cody's Wish. And I think there's a chance if we beat this one to really make the exotics pay. So the early day exotics, try to knock off that particular favorite. Which favorite do you find most vulnerable, Jeff?
I think it's Good Night Olive. I mean, she's 6-5. Even if she hadn't drawn the rail, I'm not so sure that she'd win anyway, because I'm a huge fan of Society, and I love the way Society drew outside. Not a lot of, very little early speed. She can go to the front, doesn't need the lead, but if you hand it to her, she'll take it. Training really well. Earned a career top number at Charlestown over a wet track last time out. I know it's Charleston, it's a wet track,
right?
But she's run fast just about anywhere and never been better. And she's only had 11 starts, 7 wins. She has maybe a little bit higher ceiling now than the veteran mare, Good Night Olive, who is now 5 years of age. And I mean, she's good, and she's a quality mare, and she's a pro and all that, but Do you want 6-5 on there? I don't think so. I don't. I just think if they gave me 5-2 on Society, I'd take that right now.
Yeah, I think Society's got the chance to be the better of these two right now in their careers, right? And that's what we're judging, not what Goodnight Olive was last year, but this year she hasn't been just quite as good. It'll be interesting to see what kind of trip she gets to in that vulnerability department, because down inside, she's obviously not a front runner. She got absolutely stuck on Derby Day. Remember that race, the Derby City Distaff, where
Right.
Irad couldn't get out. Tyler kept him hemmed in the entire run down the stretch. Goodnight Olive could never get out, and she got upset that day. So the same kind of trip from the one hole might see itself again. Now, Irad Ortiz, aggressive as they come, we know that, to a detriment at many times, but he's going to try to bull through. This isn't the Derby City Distaff. This is the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. So come hell or high water, he's going to try to get through whatever she needs to get through down on the inside. And so it could be a rocky trip for Goodnight Olive, which is another reason why you put her in the vulnerable category, I think, for pretty good reason. Plus, again, at a short price, do we want to take a short price on a filly or mare who looks like they're off of their horizon, right? She's peaked, right, and 2/3 of her best might still be good enough to win this. But the way Society's running right now, I'm not so sure that's the case.
Well, based on numbers, Goodnight Olive's going to need her best, and I don't think her best is what it used to be. And something, she could just shove it down my throat and win, and I wouldn't be, disappointed, because, she's won 8 out of 11. It's pretty hard to ignore that. But her best work, I think, was last year. And again, you got to take a stand. I'm not going to be putting Goodnight Olive on my ticket at 6-5.
Right.
I don't care if she wins. She wins. What am I out? A 6-5 shot? Do I care?
Defending champs have a bad history in the Filly and Mare Sprint. Groupie Doll was successful, but I think 6 or 7 others were not, including the last 2 years where Cece and Gamine couldn't get it done as the defending champions. It's hard to maintain form for fillies and mares over and over the years like that, as high as they need to be to win this race, to maintain that again for a whole nother season. Okay, so now we've got the vulnerable favorites out of the way, and we think maybe these are some opportunities to knock off some horses that a lot of people are going to be on. Now, this is probably the most exciting for sure at this point, but maybe the best graphic we've got, I think, for the entire deal. Which exacta box on the 14 races are we most interested in? And this is our slide 4 here tonight. And if you hit these 2 exactas, folks, you're going to be patting us on the back, and you're going to be coming back and saying thank you, because I tell you what, we've got a couple exactas, I think, that are going to pay. I'm going to go first just because it's sequentially on the card that way. But in the Filly and Mare Turf on Saturday, you said you heard earlier why I like Maj as the most likely winner on the card. She went wire to wire in winning the Queen Elizabeth II Challenge Cup. The filly who ran second in that race, Lindy, I think has a big chance, that she's going to be 12, 15, 16 to 1 in the Filly and Mare Turf. She's got a great turn of foot. She's going to like the 1.25 and she's going to like that pool table turf course like Jeff is talking about, that top of the ground running at Santa Anita. I think Lindy is going to make a huge run, and I have a ton of respect for Inspiral, the favorite in here. But with Lindy maybe pulling the upset, or at worst finishing second, I think we're looking at a nice exacta. You're looking at $80 plus on a $2 exacta with the favorite winning this one. I'll take 40 to 1 on a horse I really like, and second in the exacta behind the favorite. Boxing up Lindy and Inspiral. If you're playing an exacta box in this race, I'd put more money on the combination with Inspiral on top, because you're going to get a shorter payoff there, and the more likely winner is Inspiral. But Lindy has a major upset chance in this race. I'm going to have win money on her. And when we play an exacta, let's say you're going to play $20 on the exacta in this race, I'd say play 12 one direction with Inspiral on top, $8 the other direction with Lindy on top. So it's Lindy and Inspiral in the Filly and Mare Turf, Jeff, as my key exacta on the card. What say you about that?
Well, certainly Inspiral, she's never been a 1.25 but she loves fast ground, firm ground. And Daughter of Frankel, her last 2 wins were Group 1 race wins. They're both over a mile, one in France, the other one at Newmarket in the Sun Chariot. And she looked just spectacular, 124 time form rating. She is going to be hard to beat if she reproduces her European form, and if she handles a 1.25, which is not a mile, and that's been her distance. I think John Gosden, got to trust him, though. I think he feels she'll get a 1.25, especially at Santa Anita over the fast ground and the downhill opening stages of that race. As for Lindy, she's a closer for sure. Yep. And I hope she's not too far back, because if she's too far back, there are going to be horses in front of her that that can kick maybe as well as she can. So she better be somewhere, hopefully in the middle, and then have her chance and in the drive. And she's 12-1. I think she's going to be all of that and maybe even higher.
Yeah.
Because some of these other horses I think might get play. Warm Heart should get strong play for Aiden O'Brien. She's a top class race mare. And In Spiral at 5-2, I think she'll go lower. I mean, even Fev Rover, if you like North American form, is pretty tough as well. This is a killer race. It really is. And Lindy, if you can get her home, you don't have to cash a ticket the rest of the day or the day before if you can get Lindy home, because she'll pay the freight for them all.
All right, 6-7 exact the box for me in there. Like I said, play stronger on the 6-7 combo, a little lighter on the 7-6, and make sure do not ever walk away from a nice $30 winner in the Breeders' Cup without some win money on it, just playing in the exotics. Okay, Jeff, let's talk about your exacta play here next. Where do you want to go for your key exacta on Breeders' Cup weekend?
I'm going to use two horses that I don't think will be in front at 5 furlongs, and that is Motorius. He is the kind of the home course favorite, trained by Phil D'Amato. And I'm also going to throw in Roses for Deborah. She's your my version of Lindy, because she's 12-1. And she didn't run well at all in her last race, which will help the price in the Turf Monster. But they ran 5/8 and 101 and 2, which means that course going 5/8 of a mile was about 25 to 30 lengths slower than it was, which tells you how deep it was. But if you look at Roses for Deborah's firm ground races, and she hasn't had that many of them. You go back to the last time she ran on firm ground was July 3rd at Belmont Park. She won an allowance race in 106 and 4. And before that, for 6 furlongs, before that, she won a race at Pimlico on Preakness Day in 55 and 2. She really wants to hear her feet rattle. She's won 7 out of 10. She's fast on numbers. She's earned a triple-digit buyer number. She's got a great style. She stalks, pounces, and then goes. And I think she's going to be in the right spot to have every chance at a big price under Irad Ortiz Jr. So I'm absolutely going to use Roses for Deborah in my exacta with Motorius, who is a horse that might be better at 5 than he is at 5.5 or 6, even though he's kind of a mid-pack closer. He has a short run, and when he goes farther, he tends to maybe doesn't kick it in as well. But at 5/8 of a mile, he blasts home, as he did in the Green Flash at Del Mar, 5 furlongs on turf there with the short run in from the top of the stretch to the wire. That may be the shortest stretch for a grass course in North America. And he came from 7th to win by almost 2 and did it easily. And he's trained unbelievably well since. He picks up Flavian Pratt, who knows him well. He's got a lot of wins underneath him. And he's 5-1. I think Motorius is going to fire. Here are 2 horses that are going to really run their behinds off. They're going to have to catch Live in the Dream. But you know something? Live in the Dream, he's a hero. Maybe he doesn't break that sharp. Maybe he doesn't reproduce his best form. I don't know. He's going around a turn as he did at Keeneland. And I know they say, well, it was 5.5. This is 5. But I thought he was home free at the furlong pole, and he kind of hit a wall, and maybe he'll do it again. So I really think I've got 2 horses here in my exacta, Roses for Deborah and Motorius, that I'm absolutely convinced are going to run the race as well as they're capable of running. And that's all I ask at this stage.
All right, I'm going to help you out a little boost here because I've got a stat for you that you're going to like. They've run the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint at Santa Anita 7 times in its history. 6 times the winner came from a California-based stable. Tell me which California-based trainers are in this race. D'Amato. He's got the only ones in here from Southern California. So Tony Ann is in the field. Motorius, your top choice in here. And then Beer Can Man has drawn into the field today. Brad Sell, the 2 scratched today. The 13 one-timer is not going to run. So it's the 14 Beer Can Man drawing into the field. Phil D'Amato's got the only California-based horses in this race. And I agree with you. I think Motorius is the best of that group for the D'Amatos. Tony Ann, an interesting horse down to the inside too, maybe. That she's drawn pretty well in there. Could be a little bit of a price to consider. So Phil D'Amato, hopefully the Californians got him circled. We got a lot of comments coming in from the fans around here. So I'm going to try to read some of these in between.
Sure, go ahead.
Thanks to everybody for tuning in here. Chris is telling me White Abarrio's last race was 3 lengths better than anybody else in the Whitney. Hard to argue that on speed figures, right, Jeff? I mean, the buyer figures say that race was clearly faster than anybody else. The question with White Abarrio in that last race is that was 1 1/8 miles, right? Now we go the 1 1/4 miles.
And he got a look. He did what he did, no question about that. But he got a soft trip. He ran well, don't get me wrong.
Mhm.
but now he's going to face, I believe, will be a much faster pace and at 1.25 miles, and the fact that he's had a messed up training pattern. None of that is the kind of things that I look for in backing a horse in the Breeders' Cup Classic.
Right.
Again, if he goes out there and reproduces his last race, he'll be tough. I don't think he will, and that's part of handicapping, is trying to figure out whether or not a particular horse is going to run as well as he needs to run or not. And if you can anticipate that and predict properly, you've got a chance to beat a short price horse.
Ushba Tesoro, maybe 8-5 is one of the comments we've got in here. And how do we factor the downhill starts into the handicapping? This is one of the questions in here in the queue, Jeff. For people who don't know, the downhill turf course at Santa Anita is that kind of S-shaped curve as they come down and then come onto the course proper. So the first part of these 1.25-mile turf races and 1.5-mile turf races will start on that downhill course. How do you factor that into your handicapping as somebody who's played that track for 40 years?
Well, I don't think it's going to bother the Euros. They're used to breaking and then switching off. So you don't want some tearaway horse getting ranked down that hill. They start going too fast. They start breaking themselves, and by the time they hit the mid stretch, they've already spent half their energy. You don't want that. But the Euros, I don't think, will do that. As for the 1.25 miles, you'd like to be inside. And in Italian, she's not exactly a runoff, so she's going to handle it just fine. And she's got that short dog leg of a inside draw, so that'll promote her chances for sure. But generally speaking, unless you're going 6.5 down the hill, which is the full length of the course, you want a course specialist, because you got to go downhill, you got to go uphill, you got to go right-handed and left-handed, you got to cross the dirt, and experience helps. And you want to see if horses have been able to handle it. Some horses done. I ran a filly a couple of years ago that I thought was going to win, and she was leading, turning into the stretch, crossing the dirt, and then she made a right-hand turn. That was the end of that. If she had been over that course a few times, maybe she would have known what was coming. So it helps to have a run or two over the track. And a lot of times when they're warming the horses up prior to going to the gate, they'll take them back and forth across that dirt so horses can look at it and get used to it, so they don't freak out when they see it during a race.
That's a good tip there. Maybe something to keep an eye on the telecast and the coverage. Kind of see who's hanging out down there around the dirt and getting familiar with it. Good tip there from Jeff. Let's go to our next topic. We'll try to get back to some more of those comments from folks. There were some comments about scratched horses still left on the graphics. Easy, people. I'm doing the graphics. I'm trying to do everything here. Some of the horses we got off of the scratches, we're trying to update.
Tell them
we can, but those were the graphics from earlier in the week when the draw were.
We'll give them their money back, okay?
Yeah. But yes, we do. And when we note that a horse is scratched, we're going to try to verbally tell you about that. Some of the graphics have not been updated since the original entries. We will admit to that. Let's go to our fifth topic here as we talk about now trifecta specials. We hit our exactas last topic here. Let's go to the trifecta horses. Who do we think can hit the board? Top 3 finish, maybe not win, but blow up our prices here. Jeff, you've got one from Friday in the Juvenile Phillies turf.
Yeah, I'm going to try to find her here, because I want to be able to I think it's over here, this side. Yeah, okay. I mean, you got 14 races and whatever. All right.
Papers everywhere.
Yeah.
It was easier when you had that old racing form and it was only 7 races. And
but by the way, if you ever have a chance to, or ever had the opportunity to pick up a racing form from 40 years ago, you'll be shocked to find out what isn't in there. And you probably look at this and say, where are the speed figures? Where's the fractions? Where you say, how can anybody pick a winner using this thing? And the funny thing is, we seem to manage. I don't know why. Maybe we're spoiled. And maybe sometimes it's better if you don't have all the information.
Yeah, I think the buyer figures came along in 92, I believe.
Something like that.
Around the time when the Racing Times and they started publishing speed figures, then they went out of business and DRF bought them. So 92, somewhere in that ballpark. Yeah, anything pre-92, we were doing it blind without the speed figures, that's for sure. Talk about Juvenile Phillies turf here, Jeff.
Here's a filly that, and this is a filly named Content. She's number 5 on the program, and she's 15-1, and trained by Aidan O'Brien. And Moore takes them out. She's a daughter of Galileo. You like so far what I've been talking about so far? It sounds
so
good.
Far so good. Yeah.
Now, if you look at the form, thank God they now have, and they didn't always have these comment lines for the European races. And if you look at the form, you'll see lead early, lead-headed, keen hold, and she looks like a filly who wants to get it on. Well, in her most recent start in Vancouver, in a grade 3 event over a mile, right-handed mile, the rider, and obviously per instructions from Aidan O'Brien, he told him, I want this filly dead last early. I want you to grab her, and I want you to anchor her, and I want you to teach her something. Get cover, sit. She's got a great turn of foot. Instead of wasting it in the first half mile of her races and then folding up, I want her to learn how to utilize it in the last stages of the race. If she can't do it, she can't do it. But the only way she's ever going to be anybody is if she learns. So in this race, and you can watch the video if you go to XBTV or expressbet.com if you're a member and ask up for it on the video replay. They grabbed her early. She was a little keen early, but only because she was a little confused. But then she switched off beautifully. She sat there, she dropped her head, and she just sat there. And then they asked her to run at the top of the stretch, or even a little later than that, and she just quickened like BS. And she wasn't going away by 3 lengths like she's been doing it all her life. So what I'm telling you is, and she earned a very strong 87 time form rating, which is as good as any of the Euros. So I'm telling you this, if the pace is fast, which will be a lot faster here than it was over there, and she gets behind horses, and she gets cover, and she switches off, and she gets room to run from the 3/8 pole of the wire, you are going to see a kick that maybe you didn't expect, and you're going to see a tote board explode. And if it happens with Content, it's going to make your day. Now, look, this is a good field. There are other fillies in here that have better credentials than her, including Carla's Way. She won the Rockville Stakes at Newmarket, going 7/8 sets up a hill, the final stages. You got to be a dead fit filly to do that. Fortuna won the Porta Fortuna won the Shively Park top class straight one. These are good fillies. They're better fillies than what Content had to run with. The Euros are just sickeningly. They're so strong in this race. But my filly Content, even if she doesn't win, if she hits the board, she'll pay her way that way. So throw her in somewhere for sure, recognizing that both Porta Fortuna and Carla's Way are really, really good as well.
My top price for a trifecta is Exalted in the mile, and we've talked the mile. Look, if the mile works out for me, it's going to be a good day, right? We talked like Maj is my key play, my most likely winner on the card. I think Maj is lone speed, and I think she takes them wire to wire. Who sits second in this race is a real question. And whoever sits second is probably going to get a fairly easy trip as well. And I think that might be the very strong working Exalted. Jeff and I took a look at this horse's workout videos earlier in the week, and Exalted is training really well for a Peter Urton barn that's just going bonkers since Del Mar. You get top rider in California, Juan Hernandez aboard. I think this horse could work out a really good trip, and Exalted is that local turf course veteran, Jeff. And we've seen some ones with some pace, obviously, and horses like that over the years from Santa Anita that have been able to have some dent in the Breeders' Cup mile. I think this is a spot where maybe Exalted holds on for a share of it. And look, if I'm not right on Maj and Maj doesn't fire at all, Exalted might default onto the lead then. And then you've got a shot where he's the lone speed. So I think there's a lot to like. I don't necessarily like the post position, obviously, but this is why we're playing price horses. And 20-1 in the morning line. And from that post, you might actually get a bigger price because others are scared off from the post position. So we're looking for long shots. We're just looking to hit the trifecta. We're not looking to blow up the tote board with a winner. I like Exalted because if I like the pace for Maj, I got to like it for the horse who's kind of sitting second or third as well.
This is a very unique course, and it is very, very firm. And you look at Exalted, and he obviously loves it. A perfect 4 for 4 at Santa Anita. Now, not necessarily beating the quality of field he's going to have to face. But the one thing I'll say about Exalted, what he has done, what he gives you, you're going to get it. There's nothing in and out about Exalted. Since he's found turf, 5 starts, 4 wins, and a much troubled second in the Del Mar Mile last time out. He's training well. You can see good mover. Isn't he, Jeremy? A really good athlete, very handy. He always seems to sit second or third, which is exactly where you want to be in the mile. And if Maj is up by herself, there's nothing to say that Exalted can't be sitting second or third and then going after her. And he will go after her. I mean, maybe she can't be caught, but if you're looking for an exacta or some horse at a big price to make that worthwhile, I mean, this horse is like a machine. He's so fluid. He's so relaxed, covers so much ground. And he's going in 47-2. It's not like this is a 51 breeze.
And he's a turf horse.
Yeah, he's a turf horse. So, I mean, how is Exalted not going to run as well as he's capable of running? Now, you might say, well, there are other horses in here that might be better. Possibly. Kalina, Songline. Yeah. But what you think you're going to get from Exalted is what you're going to get at 20-1.
Yeah, if you run 6-12 in here, I'll be very happy. But I'll also be very happy if you run 6-something-12. Because look, 2 speed horses going out running 1-2 all the way around the track in the Breeders' Cup Mile, probably not likely. Somebody's going to kick from the back. But if that horse who's tracking can hold on for third or fourth for the Super, that's what you're looking for, right? So, if you got Maj on top as your likely winner, like I do, then I'm getting a lot of 6 all 12s in my trifectas, because then I don't care who runs second. And if I can get Exalted to hold on for third, which is what we're talking about here as our key trifecta bombers on the day, that's what we're looking for. So do I expect him to win? No. Do I think he can hold for second, third, or fourth if you're a superfecta player? Absolutely. So that's one to watch in our trifecta specials. All right, let's talk about some prep races that we loved and prep races that we didn't love. We're going to start off with which prep races Jeff and I liked the best. You've already heard this from me. The Queen Elizabeth II Challenge Cup won on the front end by Maj, and then the runner-up Lindy. I think this is a live race towards both the filly and mare turf and the mile. It was run just 3 weeks ago. These horses are fit. They're coming back on short rest, and horses out of the QE2 have come back in the Breeders' Cup before. This isn't like some, crazy shakes here to come back on the shorter rest. But I'll tell you what, I really like this race at Keeneland earlier this year, Jeff, and I'm going to bank that this race has some significance towards 2 potential divisions. You also have a 2-division race that you're talking about here. It could impact the mile result, and it could impact the turf result. It was the Coolmore Turf Mile at Keeneland. For anybody who didn't see this might have been the race of the meet in Lexington.
The front duo, Master of the Seas, has come up the rail, up to 5th. Now seeking to change lanes, still 4 lengths from the front. Annapolis, Master of the Seas, is bearing down from behind. Up to the mark is running late behind Master of the Seas. Set piece down the center of the course. Master of the Seas alongside Annapolis, and up to the mark is coming on. Master of the Seas, up to the mark is there. Master of the Seas, head-bobbing photo. Either Master of the Seas or up to the mark, one of those two in the Coolmore Turf Mile, 134.18.
And no rematch between those two, because like the Queen Elizabeth II Challenge Cup, you've got one going one division and one going another. Master of the Seas, the horse who lost that nose bob in this race, comes back in the mile, whereas up to the mark, who got there by a nose, is going to stretch out and run in the turf. You like this race a lot.
I mean, how do you win a Grade 1 race at Keeneland when they're actually giving you the race, the barn? And they're saying, and if you go back and watch that race, Ortiz hit him once. He wasn't even going to ask him. He's like, well, yeah, maybe I can win it. I don't care, I know, but I might as well win it if I can. So he kind of hit him once from like 50 yards from the wire, and he was up in time. They were giving him the race. It was his first start. They were pointing for the Breeders' Cup, but they didn't want a hard race off the long layoff. And he still won, and he ran fast. And he beat a horse that's a good horse, and a horse that had a perfect trip, got through, and he still nailed him. To me, up to the mark, I mean, my first reaction was, how did that happen? Yeah. How did he beat up to the mark? How did up to the mark get up? They weren't even trying with him. Now, I would have run him right back in the mile, because he's one of these horses that he's not a front runner, but he can lay in the middle somewhere if he has to.
Oh, sure.
And so now, instead of going 1.5 miles, they're asking him to do something he has never done. They're asking him to run against the Epsom Derby winner and the Irish Derby winner and the Judd Monitor National winner and the Prince of Wales Stakes winner. I mean, oh, by the way, the Champion Stakes horse, the winner from 2 weeks ago, he's in there as well for this measure, King of Steel. So you look at this race. Now, Get Smoking is out. That is correct, right? Okay.
That is right.
So the pace situation is going to be a little slower, which I mean, now you're talking about riders, and you're going to try to get the jockeys to be in the right spot and move at the right time. And up to the mark is a push button horse. He can move. You can do anything you want with him, and he's going to fire. But whether or not he'll be able to kick home like he just did, going 1.5 miles as he did to a mile, is something that I probably, if I owned him, or I wouldn't really want to have to answer that question. I know what he is at a mile. I don't care about the mile. I just want to, I'm in the money. I just want to win a race. And up to the mark, to me, would have a better chance, if for no other reason than the competition isn't quite as steep. But he is such a good horse, and that was such a good prep race. To me, that's the one race that just blew me away in terms of the prep. Some of the other prep races were really good as well, but I expected to see that. I didn't expect to see this from up to the mark.
Right. Let's talk about some prep races we didn't like, and we're on the Keeneland theme here. We think the Keeneland races are pluses and minuses, both of us. I did not like the Breeders' Futurity at Keeneland for the Juvenile. This is a race that's obviously a prep towards the Friday main event on the main track, and it was won by Locke, and I just thought they made hard work of it in that race, and Locke was able to win, but I was not visually impressed. The numbers say it was faster than it looked to my eyes. Part of that might be the figure history because Locke got such a big number in the previous race. I'm not wild about this race, the Breeders' Futurity, and it's a race historically that I have liked. Remember last year when Forte and Loggins threw it down and ran such a big race? I was really impressed last year. I wasn't sure how those horses would bounce back because it was such a big effort. Locke's effort in the Juvenile, in the Breeders' Futurity at Keeneland, I don't think that makes him the favorite. I know the numbers say, the Beyer numbers say he's the favorite for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. You already know that I like Muth in the race, but I'm anti this race, and that also means the wine steward who ran second in that race, and it took him to the mat the final quarter of a mile in the race in the Breeders' Futurity. So I'm off the 2-year-olds coming out of that race at Keeneland, and everybody knows I'm a Keeneland homer to start with. So if I'm anti something at Keeneland, it means I really don't like it. So that's if I lose, I lose. But I'm against Locke here going in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and the horses coming out of that race.
I have a different opinion about this. We can, the different, it's what a difference of opinion makes a horse race. Well, that's right. See, I like the race. Here, there's one thing I didn't like about it, and that is he ran too hard. I didn't want him to have to lay his body down and run that hard in his prep race. So that's the negative. But to me, I thought he ran a remarkable race. He was so wide every step of the way. That's a pretty darn good horse. He had to look in the eye in the final 16th of a mile and beat him. The number was strong. That doesn't even factor in the ground loss, which sheep players will do. I don't know what his sheep number was, but I thought it was visually great, but I just didn't want to see him have to just, have a gut-wrenching win like that. It may not bother him. Maybe, he's a 2-year-old. Maybe he can get over it. He breathed nicely since that race. It didn't look like it took anything out of him. So I'm going to take a different stance on that. I could be wrong, but I thought that was a really good race for him. And
I'll give you a head-to-head. We joked about this earlier, I think you and I today, or maybe it was with Johnny D. I had a 3-hour skull session today with the retired Johnny D, John DeSantis, handicapping. In a head-to-head, I will take Fierceness to beat Locke in the Juvenile.
Well, that's my second horse. That's no fair. I like Fierceness too. Find me a horse that you Fierceness. See, Fierceness ran into Champagne and was eliminated at the start. And what happened there is, this is what I would do if I were trying to go down and yell at the rider. Okay, you blew the start. Fine. Okay, don't take back. Sit there and make one run. Don't let him run at the half-mile pole to the quarter pole. There's no money at the quarter pole. Teach him something. Just grab him, take him back, and make one run. But that's not what happened. Now, since then, he, too, has come back and trained well. You know what he did in his first start. If he breaks running in this race, I wouldn't be shocked to see Fierceness on the front end. Now, I wish he'd run better last time, and I would like to get paid off via the price because of that. I don't know if that's going to happen. But I'm not quite as high on the California 2-year-olds as I usually am. I mean, I think they're good.
We're flipped here. This is weird. I don't like the Keeneland 2-year-olds, and I like the Californians. And you don't like the Californians. I know. What have we done with each other, Jeff?
I don't know. It looks like I'm rooting against the Bruins.
Too long, we finish each other's sentences, and now we can't even agree on where the best 2-year-olds.
It's like I'm rooting against the Bruins, and you're rooting against Oklahoma. This is crazy.
Oh, that would never happen.
Okay. So taking a stand against the Keeneland horses is okay, but never knock Oklahoma. All right,
can't happen.
Okay, fair enough. I get it. All right. Anyway, so we have a difference of opinion here. We'll find out. If my evaluation of the Breeders' Futurity is correct or incorrect. It's going to be one or the other, that's for sure. Now, as far as my prep race that I didn't love, it was Idiomatic's win by 4 lengths in the Spinster. But it's not that I didn't love the race. She didn't do anything. She didn't have to do anything. They handed her the lead. She went 48-1, 112-1, just like 2-minute licking. She's won 3 in a row, actually 4 in a row, but her fractions have been 48-1.5, 48-4.5, 48-2.5. I don't know if she can take heat or not, Jeremy. I really don't. But if she can't, then this is the race that's going to find her out a little bit, because she's going to have to go from the bell. Nobody's going 48 and change in this race. She's going to get pressure from Adair Manor, search results, going to show speed. I mean, the rail, Hoosier Phillies putting blinkers on to let her run out of there for sure. And there's a few others in here that'll show speed. Randomized. You think she's going to be ready? There's no way. So I don't. The reason why I don't love the race is because I didn't learn anything from it. That's all. Not that she didn't run well, but anybody could have done what she did. I'm looking for a closer, and I'm going to lean on you to tell me who that is eventually because, I mean, I don't know. But this is the one race that I can't grasp. I need help.
Yeah.
I need help.
The distaff is asking to melt down. We'll hopefully land on the proper closer by the time we get to the end of the day and the end of the show. A couple more comments. Keep sending those in. I'm checking out the ones from YouTube. Thanks for all the comments of people there. Someone asked, Ushba Zorro is a 6-year-old. When's the last time a 6-year-old won the Classic? They haven't. So we'll be making history if it's Ushba Tesoro. The oldest winner of the Classic has been 5 years old, so we shall see.
But
a very lightly raced horse at 6, as far as they go for being 6 years old.
It's not like he's off form, though, at age 6. What's he won, like 6 in a row or something like that?
Right. There's a lot of Ushba Tesoro talk on this side of the chat here as I'm taking it out there. Beat a weak field in Dubai, I'm seeing here. Question is, when's the last time a horse from Japan won a Classic race on dirt here in the U.S.? Well, they won the Breeders' Cup Distaff at Del Mar a couple years ago.
Yeah.
So, it wasn't that long ago and blew up the tote board. But now you're taking a short price to see it happen. So I can see the value argument, right?
He's
if
not
you want
the
to say
favorite.
it's difficult to do to come from Japan and win here, then you should get paid at least. I'll say that.
Well, yeah, but here's the thing: is it's not like he's 6-5. He won't be, trust me, unless the commingled Japanese money shows up. Then who knows what he'll be? Yeah,
we'll see how the pools shake out. Let's go to our next topic. We've got the preps we loved and didn't love. Who's made the best impression in the morning so far? And hate to say it, but we're landing on the same trainer, not the same horse in here. And Bob Baffert's horses always look good in the morning, so you take some of this with a grain of salt. But I have been highly impressed by what I've seen by Arabian Night in the morning, Jeff. Really, everything he's done in the morning has looked solid to me. He's bringing himself well as he can be doing. Whether or not he's good enough to go wire to wire in a 1.25 miles with the other horse, with Saudi Crown pressing him for the pace, that's going to be determined. But Arabian Night has trained spectacularly since his race at Del Mar in the summer. And he, to me, is the Californian to beat, whether or not Go Rocket Ride was back or not. And, of course, really sad news about Go Rocket Ride passing away here this week after the injury last week. Certainly condolences out there to fans of that horse and to anyone involved with him. But Arabian Night, I think, is blossoming right now. It's the best he can absolutely be. He's the horse that I've seen in the morning through all the workout videos that has impressed me the most. Which one for you?
Well, I agree with you on Arabian Night. He's looked unbelievably well. My issue with him is whether or not he can stalk and win. He hasn't done that. All 3 of his wins were gate to wire. Unless something happens with Saudi Crown, I don't think he's going to be able to outrun him early. He's going to get what most people would consider to be a perfect stalking trip, Arabian Night. It may not be a perfect trip for him, though. That's the whole thing.
Right.
So, this is not has anything to do with that. It's just how has he looked in the morning. He's looked just fantastic. Okay, so nothing negative on that. Now, I actually went with another Bob Baffert horse, and it's not just because he works his horses fast, because at the time to me is secondary to how they do it. Arabian Night worked 7/8 and 24. That's fast, but he looked great. And Speedboat Beach worked 3/4 and 11 flat from the gate, and looked like he was going in 114 or 115. He never was asked to drop at all. I mean, he comes out of the gate. It's like he's like galloping. He's not being sent. Look at the strong hold he's got. I thought this was, if I didn't have the watch on this thing, I thought it was going to be a 114 and 115. Right. But he's into the bridle. He's sharp. I mean, he's quick, and he's catching a field without not a lot of early speed in the race. I mean, he's going to be able to probably make the lead here. And if he does, and he's not pressured, and if he can get that opening quarter in 21-4 or something like that, 21-3, and do it like this, he's not going to come back. Now he ties in with another breezer here, which I'm not sure Bob wanted that, because I'm pretty sure he didn't want to go that fast. But when you get into the competition, I mean, Speedboat Beach, He thinks he's in a race now. I
Right.
mean, the jock says, "Oh, I'm going to go too fast. I can't let this horse run at all. Horses, if I let him run, he's going to go in 9 and change. Then I'll get yelled at and maybe fired." So in the final furlong, he's just galloping along here. Looks like he's finishing up a 3/8 and 37. And he's still going to get up and win the workout from a workmate who only worked half the distance. That's 111 flat from the gate, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
I mean, how much better can you work than that? And don't forget his last race, which he got beat on a whisker in the Santa Anita Sprint Championship, losing to a horse who was beating the nose in the Breeders' Cup 2 years ago, Dr. Siegel. I mean,
Right.
he was a short horse that day. Now that work came after that race. How much more better, faster, and fitter is Speedboat Beach going to be in this race, especially over a track that's going to be very fast? That to me was the work of the day, the work of the week, the work of the month.
Yeah, and Speedboat Beach has got a lot of steam behind him right now, a lot of momentum. Handicappers like what they see from him. It's not the toughest sprint we've ever seen. Elite Power, the defending champion, is back. You could argue his form, other than getting beat by a Gunite last time, is as good as it was coming into last year. There's not a lot of knocks on Elite Power. He's an elite sprinter.
Yeah.
This is a good edition of the sprint, but I don't think it's an overwhelmingly great edition of the sprint. But I think it's a very good one. You know, you've got horses like the Chosen Vron, who's just run off win after win after win. Gunite is very good, and he's back to doing one-turn things like he should be after the misplaced race at Parks. He really shouldn't have been in that 2-turn race. I don't think that's going to, be his calling card, obviously, when his career postscript is written. So a good edition of the Breeders' Cup Sprint, probably, a little above average, but I don't know if there's like a Hall of Fame type sprinter in this race. So it's one where Speedboat Beach is the right horse right now, right? Second, third off the layoff, and he's getting good.
I think it is. And Chosen Vron, I mean, you talk about a pro. The only question mark I have with him, and maybe I shouldn't have it, but it's there in black and white. He's run 17 times. He's only broken the Bayer 100 mark twice. He's not particularly fast on numbers, but he always wins. Maybe he's the kind of horse that only runs as fast as he needs to. And he's fresh. 7 out of 8 lifetime over the Santa Anita main track. That's a pretty tough number to buck. And I don't know whether he'll win or not, but the Chosen Vron somewhere along the way is going to loom a threat. And you don't want him breathing down your neck in the final furlong, because if he sees you, he'll beat you.
Yeah. Good comment in the chats. DW says, I've watched too many vids on these races and I've heard so many different opinions. One person loves this horse. One person hates the same horse. I think you're better off doing your own handicapping. I 100% agree, DW. Do your own handicapping. What we're doing is helping the process of there are 150 horses. There are 14 races. You don't know all the horses. I don't know all the horses. Like I said, I had a 3-hour skull session with one of my best friends today, handicapping, where he said stuff that I hadn't even thought of yet. So it's about spurring ideas and breaking ties. And like, you hit a situation where you go, I'm looking for this to happen, but I'm not sure which horse can make it happen. That's why we're doing these kind of things, because if you sit and listen to Jeff for 14 races or you listen to me for 14 races, you're better off doing your own thing. But if you can take a little bit from everybody, that's what this, it's like building a good recipe. Take a little bit from everybody, your experiences along the way. Maybe you're not a great visual handicapper. Maybe you don't like workouts. You hear something good or bad about either one of those things that aren't your strength. It can help you when you're not certain about a horse. I think anytime you're taking public handicappers' help, it's to help you break ties, your indecisiveness, or fill gaps in where you don't have that particular skill set, right? I'm not a great whatever kind of handicapper. I'm not a great visual handicapper. So I'm going to listen to trip notes from somebody who really does do a good job with those sort of things. Find where you're weak, admit your flaws, and then find help in those areas. But when it comes to nuts and bolts handicapping, trust yourself, man. Because I'll tell you what, there is no better feeling in the world than picking the winner yourself, right, Jeff? That's why we all do this, So yes, don't just sit back and try to absorb all this information and say, okay, Jeff likes the 9, Jeremy likes the 3, I like the 1, I'm going to box 1, 3, 9. Do stuff, man. Use this to help break ties and where you don't know exactly where you want to go. 40 years plus handicapping. Jeff's done it for longer than I have. I don't want to put a number on it, Jeff. I don't know. How many years have you been handicapping, Jeff?
I remember reading the racing form when I was 7, so that's back in the 50s. Right. I didn't know what I was looking at, but I sure knew that I knew everything by then. I can tell you that. Every year since then, I learned how less I know. Kind of starting here and then building backwards,
Right.
But no, I mean, you're right about that. I mean, I will listen to anybody with an opinion. I could reject it, but they might find something that I missed. And I missed a lot. And it's easy with all, how many horses are entered in this race, these 2-day races, 150, whatever it was. I mean, you're not going to be able to cover all bases. If someone says something that you haven't seen or pointed out, check it out. It might help.
Yeah. Somebody in the live chat now telling me Exalted just a few minutes ago is out. I'm going to try to just get on my phone here and see what I can find out on that. If we've got some news there in terms of the Breeders' Cup. So see what we get as we search around on that for Exalted. Try to confirm that from the chat.
I
Go
thought
ahead, Jeff, while I look around a little bit.
I thought I had seen that, but they kind of piecemeal the scratches here. That's not like they don't come off like on the morning of the day. You get scratches on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we'll have some tomorrow as well. And it's hard to keep track of them all. And because I hadn't actually considered Exalted anywhere near as strongly as you had, I wasn't paying that attention. It kind of went in one ear out the other. So I'm not sure if that's correct or not, but I wouldn't be surprised if it is.
I will pop in here, see what we can find on the old Twitter bug. Nothing lately. So let's hold off on that. We'll see and try to confirm anything on that we know. So let's go. Next up, let's see where we're going with this, Jeff. We did our best morning impression. Okay, so now we're going to talk a quick one on a little bankroll builder here. There are undercard races, several of them on Friday, and then 2 on Saturday, and then there'll be one at the end of the card. So if the Breeders' Cup races are a big challenge, which they always are, and you prefer the regular old races at Santa Anita or local track USA, we've got a couple plays for you on the undercard. So let me find that for us. That's going to be screen number 9 here. So our bankroll builder, these are 2 horses we're looking for on the undercards. Jeff's got one on Friday. I've got one on Saturday. Jeff, you like Private Gem in the 4th race on Friday. Give a quick little synopsis there why you like that one.
Here's a colt, 2-year-old colt by Lookin' Unlucky. He ran won his debut October 20th. He won by a nose. And he was claimed for $50,000 by Mark Gladd, who's a very shrewd trainer, has a good eye for a horse. Now, if you look at the running line, he won the race by nose, but take some time and check out the race. It's on. You could do it at ExpressBet. Call it up there on the video replay. CalRacing.com has it. Watch Private Gem's race and tell me that even though he won by a nose, he probably was. And this is not an exaggeration. It's what I believe. He was 5 lengths the best in that race, first-time starter. He had the most brutal trip I've ever seen for a first-timer. He was in the box. He was between horses. He was trapped inside, outside. There was a horse in front of him, a horse behind him, checking and steadying and checking and steadying, enough for any horse to just wave the white flag and stop running. Right. Turning into the stretch, he tried to rally again, got shut off, completely lost his path, had to alter his course, still had 2 to 3 lengths to make up with well inside the 16 pole, and then went and got up and won by a nose and galloped out way in front. I mean, it was an amazing performance, and he earned a 60 buyer number, which doesn't sound great, but that's good enough to win the Golden State Juvenile, in which Mark Gladd is running him back in. He's not running back in a starter race. He's not running him back for a tag. He's not running back in a now what is it 2. He's running in a $175,000 stake with an extra furlong to work with, 7/8, and he gets Flavie and Pratt, and he is 8-1 on the morning line. I mean, if you don't bet any race in 2 days, bet this one.
All right.
Private Gem is going to make my bankroll. I hope he makes yours too.
All right, that's Private Gem in the Golden
4th
State
race.
Golden State Juvenile, race number 4 on Friday. I'm going to take you to the 2nd race. It's right before the Breeders' Cup races start in race number 3 on Saturday, to the Twilight Derby. And I like Maj potentially to go wire to wire on the turf in the mile race a little bit later on the card. I'm hoping the same thing plays out with speed on the grass in the Twilight Derby with Reincarnate. You might remember this one from the Kentucky Derby prep season. Reincarnate, a horse who gets back on the turf. This is a horse who started the first first 2 races on the turf. Reincarnate ran a couple good seconds. It's been taking on classier horses than many have in the Twilight Derby. The running lines are strong, and there's no speed in this race. So the way I handicapped this race, the Twilight Derby, was Reincarnate can be aggressive, make the front in here, and has a lot of back class running to get some of the top 3-year-olds in the country. So I like Reincarnate to have a big chance to get the day off to a good start for speed on the turf. And if that's good, then I'm going to be happy as we get a little bit later into the card, as I'm hoping that we can get speed on the turf in the mile with Maj as well. So Reincarnate, my top pick in the Twilight Derby. That's race number 2 on the Saturday card. Want to give people a little bit outside the Breeders' Cup here. That's what we do on First Call. Typically, we're handicapping 8 stakes races each weekend from around the country. So a little bit of variety beyond the Breeders' Cup for one of our bullets tonight, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of good gambling even outside the Breeders' Cup races. The undercard is fantastic for both days, and it's going to be fun. This is the one. Look, I've been around this game a long time. I've was a professional pick 6 player in the 80s, and I don't wager that much anymore. But this is the one day or 2 days that it's kind of like a throwback day for me. Like what I used to do. If I lose, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to change my life one way or the other. But It's fun. It's not only fun to win, but it's also fun to do the work. It's like preparing for the Super Bowl. It's like trying to devise a defense to stop Mahomes. This is the challenge here. And you put the work in, you watch the tapes, you watch the workouts, you do your numbers, you try to read about as much of how these horses are doing. Check out the Euros because they're going to win their share for sure. Right. And then you get rewarded. It's like solving a puzzle. That's what this is. The only difference is when you do this and you're successful, you can make some serious money.
Now, you can get all of Jeff's full card picks, again, in the blog section at expressbet.com under the What You Need to Know for Santa Anita each and every race day of the Santa Anita season. Also at news.first.com, you can get that as well. So Jeff's daily blog, you'll want to check that out tomorrow morning for the full Friday card, and then Saturday morning for the full Saturday card. If you want my selections for the Breeders' Cup, you can get those through Substack, exclusively sent free to your email. Go to Substack, jeremyplonk.substack.com. Sign up there. It's free. You're not charged anything. Just provide your email information, and I will send you full card analysis for both days of the Breeders' Cup. Absolutely no charge whatsoever. We want to get you on that Substack list, so sign up for that, and I will be publishing all of that directly to customers, fans, I guess, as you will, not customers, because you're not paying anything, or you're paying the ultimate price, which is absolutely nothing but your time and your energy, and happy to provide that for everybody out there. So free handicapping information. We'll have stuff too throughout the year, not just on Breeders' Cup Day. So be sure to sign up for that. Again, there's no gimmick. There's no catch. Anybody knows me. I've been around 30 years. I'm as honest as it comes in this game. We're not going to charge you anything down the line or anything like that. So if you want to sign up for that Substack and get all the free information in print form and written form so you can print it out and take it with you, you'll be able to get that. Again, jeremyplonk.substack.com. Now, Jeff, we're going to close with one thing here as we hit an hour and 12 minutes on the podcast tonight. I'll look at a few questions from fans or comments from fans too before we close out. But want to get something here on the closeout. If the Breeders' Cup is going to be a major success, what's going to have to happen? So let's take a look at our final topic here tonight. I'll have a great Breeders' Cup if, and I'll let you start things off because you're a better man than me.
Well, yeah, I mean, I want to win money, but I also, more important to that is that every horse during the 2-day festival returns healthy. I don't want to see any injuries. I want a clean, positive experience for the 2 days. We've had some bad luck already this week. I hope that's out of our system. But for me, if we can have racing at its very best and people can go to the races, enjoy it, and come home and say that was a couple of good days, that to me, for me, is a winner. And that's more important to me than any ticket I might cash.
As for me, I'm just going to go cold-hearted and go to the windows for mine, but I absolutely echo your sentiments on this. We need a good, safe Breeders' Cup for everybody involved all the time, but now as much as ever. Mine is going to be if we hit a deep closer in the Breeders' Cup Distaff, other than Clairiere, it's going to be a very good day because I am banking on the Breeders' Cup Distaff to go insanely fast. With Hoosier Philly down on the inside, there's some speed there. There's plenty of speed with Idiomatic, Ed Air Manor, search results, and randomize. And they're almost all drawn in succession in the starting gate. They're going to lock up. I'm looking for an epic speed duel in the Breeders' Cup Distaff and a huge closer to win this. If it's Clairiere, then it's going to be a short price as the second or third pick. That's not big enough for what I'm looking for. If we can get a bomb squad member to pull this off in the Breeders' Cup Distaff, Pretty Mischievous can come from off the pace. Wet Paint can come from off the pace. Maybe a lot of Vita from the outside from off the pace. If we can get one of those kind of numbers in here at a big price, that's what I'm looking for in the Breeders' Cup Distaff, because I think it'll pay boxcars in the multi-race wagers. The late pick 5 is going to start, I believe, in the Distaff races, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, something. Some of these big multi-race wagers late in the day, starting with these wagers here. So I think if you can get a big price in the Breeders' Cup Distaff, you can make your weekend, and that's what we're going to try to do. Hopefully, which one of those closers? I've got about 24 hours to figure it out. Handicapping crunch time is here. Again, subscribe to that Substack. We will send out our selections for all the Breeders' Cup races and get those to you tomorrow and on Saturday as well. So, Jeff Siegel, that's going to wrap this up. It's been a lot of fun, a little bit hectic here, but it's been nice having the fans in on the chat as well. Try to get a few. Exalted is listed on the Breeders' Cup website as a scratch here from one of the fans. So we will pass that bit of information along there. And we are going to, have to rethink some of that. That was one of my long shot plays. So again, if you get the information on Substack, we'll have more updated picks and stuff like that. So maybe we can get a different bomb. There's plenty of bombs to find in the Breeders' Cup. That was the one I liked the most for the Breeders' Cup Mile. But one thing that does do, Jeff, is if Exalted is out, that makes it even easier on Maj up front, right? I mean, the early pace it gets even more convenient.
I don't know who wants to be first over on Maj. You might have to work pretty hard to do that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And if you're chasing her, you might wear yourself out. But Maj was looking better by the minute based on that. Exalted is the kind of horse that could lay second. And not only could he lay second, but he can finish too. It's not like he's going to hang behind her. So, it is. That's one of the reasons why I tend to want to publish late, because a lot of people, they tell you who they like, they do their videos 3 days, 4 days advance, and it's obsolete by the time you get to Friday and Saturday. So we did this one Thursday night, and hopefully most of the stuff that we talked about will hold and ring true, and nothing will change it. But I can tell you, I'm looking out my window. The weather is unbelievably great, a little warm, but no threat of any kind of off track, dry and fast, and packed. I was out there this morning and this afternoon, very festive atmosphere. Everybody is looking forward to a great couple of days of racing, and I think we'll give it to them.
And on behalf of everybody with First Bet and Express Bet, we hope you play with us this weekend when you have a lot of ADWs and a lot of choices. Maybe you go to your local racetrack on Breeders' Cup Day. That's fantastic. But if you're playing online, please do so with First Bet and Express Bet, where there's a $10 money back special on every race at Santa Anita Friday and every race on Saturday. So if your win bet finishes second or third, you'll get $10 back into your account in the form of wagering credit. It's not an immediate refund. You're not going to sit there and cycle through money all day. It comes in, 24, 48 hours after the fact, and then you'll get your refunds back into the account at the beginning of the week. So it's a great safety net. It's a great promotion. Again, up to $10 back on all your win bets if they finish second or third. So take advantage of that. If you're going to play some straight plays on the Breeders' Cup, be sure to do so with Express Bet and First Bet. Jeff and I will be back on Tuesday next week for the It's Official podcast, where each week we take on 5 hot topics in racing and we review the weekend that was. It will be Breeders' Cup postscript for sure, high on our schedule next week. So be sure to join us for that and check out the Express Bet Wager Guide, first.com/guide. First Bet and Express Bet Breeders' Cup Wager Guide unleashed this week for the 20th time. It's the 40th Breeders' Cup and the 20th annual Wager Guide. Proud to be part of that. Jeff's in there, all the team from First and Express Bet. So be sure to check that out, first.com/guide. Have a great night, everybody. Good luck at the Breeders' Cup and safe trips to all the animals and all the horses and horsemen in this year's Breeders' Cup.